Shalom. All praises to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakah, Kodash, double honors to my apostles and elders, a great millstone. Shalom to my brothers teaching this word. And for this lesson, I was inspired by beloved elder brother Gabal Yahweh out there in Hawaii. Beloved elder did a beautiful lesson. I think it was in Tuesday, about, we've been called to endure and not to give up, basically. This walk that we're in, it's not going to be easy. In fact, it's a very difficult and narrow walk, and only a few are going to make it. We hope that we're part of the few, Lord willing, if it be the Lord's will, because the few are ultimately the elect, But being in Yahweh Shai ain't easy, Suffering for the Lord ain't easy, If it was easy, everyone would pass the hour of temptation, But at the end of the day, only a few is going to pass the hour of temptation, which is when the MOTB, the microchip, becomes made mandatory, and you have to pick a side, and ultimately those that are rooted in Yahweh Bashem Shai and rooted in his son Yahweh Shai are ultimately going to be the ones that truly, trust in the Lord in that time, and pass that test, and Yahweh Shai gave the clue, those that endure to the end shall be saved, meaning the elect are going to endure to the end, because the ones that are going to be saved on this side is the elect of Israel. And we hope to hell that we're part of the Lord's elect. And we hope the Lord keep us, and that, woe is me, mindset, that's a very destructive mindset, Yeah, we're in the flesh, we get tired of this place, this is hell, but this is a battle, man. Every day you got to fight your flesh, you got to keep it in check, as well as, catching hell from this devil, Esau Edom, and being in Esau's world, whilst having this truth, man, in earthly vessels. It ain't easy, man. Okay, this is a very difficult walk, and at times you do feel like you want to go back to the spirit world, because the spirit world is way better than here. And the spirit world is peace, and we're in a righteous mindset. We're not in these, chains of darkness, and Esau, and the nations are not ruling over us in the spirit world, because in the spirit world, all souls go there, and there's no one, catching hell up there. Everyone is at peace in the spirit world, even the heathens, but guess what? The Lord, sends spirits back down to the earth. They play out their judgment. Spirits get rewarded here and also get punished here. There ain't no hell dimension, but catching hell, going into a condition on earth, man, a low condition, man, and that's what we're in right now. We're catching hell, man, and when you're catching hell, you want to escape. Okay, we weren't, put here to escape, and ultimately, if we're part of the Lord's elect, we're going to escape the destruction, Lord willing, if we're part of the Lord's elect, but guess what? The scriptures mention, through much tribulation, and I might get that, Lord willing, the book of Acts, chapter 14, through much tribulation shall we enter into the kingdom. It ain't going to be an easy walk into the kingdom, man. We're going to be tried, man. We're going to be put to the test, and that's when the elect are going to shine ultimately, through that faith, exhibiting that faith, especially in the worst time period ever. And when the scriptures allude to, when the Son of Man, Yahweh Shai, comes, shall he find faith on the earth? Because there's only going to be a few Israelites that truly have the faith in Yahweh Shai, and those Israelites are going to endure to the end, So this is a call to endurance, man, not escape, Remember, we serve Yahweh Shai, and remember the Lord controls both sides, man, The Lord could have good things happen to you, and he also can have bad things happen to you. Job said it, man, to his wife, when she was telling him to, curse the Most High. Job called her a foolish woman because she was, because that was a foolish statement, a very foolish statement, and Job told her, should we not receive bad things from the Lord even as we receive good things? So remember that, man. And it's mentioned in the book of Micah, we bear the indignation of the Lord because we sinned against him. So remember that as well, man. Remember that, all the BS that we did, especially in this life, how much more our past life, Yahweh Shai knows everything, The Lord has every right to punish us, remember, Remember that we're really, have great mercy. The Lord is really showing us great mercy. You know, we deserve to get worse, man. But Yahweh Shemashai is showing us great mercy, man. Don't take His mercy for granted. Don't waste, the grace that the Lord has given us, man. Now is more than ever to be in the spirit and be, in joyfulness in Yahweh Shemashai. We understand we're in the flesh, but the kingdom of heaven is at hand. Our salvation is nearer than we first believed. Because every day is a day closer to the return of Yahweh Shai. And we're very close to Yahweh Shai returning because the prophecies are manifested, especially the MOTB is almost fully here, which is the microchip. Now's not the time to get weak. Now's not the time to have those stupid ass doubt thoughts, that doubt demon, because you're catching hell, you think that, that, there's no, light at the end of the tunnel, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and Yahweh Shai is the light, but you're going to have to go through a very dark tunnel, man, so that you can be worthy to escape all these things and stand before the Son of Man. This is Sirach 2, verse 1. My son, if thou comes to serve the Lord, prepare thy soul for temptation. So this is, in a way, it's kind of like a warning, Remember, when you're serving the Lord, get ready to catch hell. Get ready to go through obstacles, because the Lord ain't going to make it easy, but He ain't going to, make it super hard, especially if you're of His elect. The Lord ain't going to put on you that you can't bear, So every hell that we go through, brothers and sisters, in this truth, and I say that for myself, the sicknesses, the everyday life, your car might break down, financial problems, all kind of, problems that you have on this earth, especially due to the curses that we're under, is even more heightened in this truth because, the Lord puts you through that fire, and that fire is that tribulation, the afflictions that you got to go through, man. And we haven't really been through the ultimate fire, which is the time of Jacob's trouble, our temptation. But all the things that the Lord put on us is ready to build us up. He's not ready to destroy us. Remember that. Even though it may feel like, we ain't getting no W's, it may feel like that we're losing in the eyes of man, in the eyes, in a fleshly sense, in a carnal sense. But to hell with the carnal sense. The Lord ain't dealing with the carnal, Yahweh Shemashai, the scriptures mention the carnal mind is enmity with Yahweh Shemashai. Remember that, man. It's just the flesh talking, man. You're meant to rule the flesh, your spirit, you're meant to govern the flesh, Okay, we don't walk after the flesh, man. Because the flesh will put you in a bad place. That's why it's a constant battle against your spirit and the flesh, man. It really is a chain of darkness. And we're longing to be changed. And guess what? That's going to happen on this side for those that endure to the end. So, all the hell that the Lord Yahweh Shemashai puts on us is not ready to destroy us. It's ready to prove us, to test us. Because it's all good and saying that you love Yahweh Shemashai and having all this lip service, but the Lord is going to put you to the test. Do you truly love the Lord? The Lord put Job to the test, and Job passed the test. And he even told his wife, don't receive good things and bad things from the Lord. And that same thing applies to us. Sometimes the Lord will give you good days. Sometimes the Lord will give you bad days. But guess what? The beautiful thing is you still believe in Yahweh Shemashai. You're Israelite, you have the truth. You're able to call upon the name of Yahweh Shemashai. You're able to pray, repent every day. You got food over your on your plate. You got roof over your head. You got what you need. There's people out there that are homeless that don't have the things that you have, that I don't have, that I have, the things that I don't have. It's like the things that I have. There are people that don't have it. And also there's brothers and sisters in this truth, that are going through more hell than you. So remember that it's not just your own self that's catching hell. The whole family, the whole elect family is going through hell. But the hell that the Lord put us on us is not to destroy us, man. And remember that the Lord has been so good to us. We really deserve worse, man. You don't want to be a 2/3, because the 2/3 and the rebellious of our people right now are living it up. They're living it up in this carnal, world, enjoying carnal pleasures, which is only for a moment, and they're gonna have a horrible demise through death by pain. You don't want that. I don't want that. It's best to go through the fire now. It's best to, go through the little sufferings that the Lord puts on us, the light afflictions, which we have in Yahweh Shai, than to, celebrate with sinners and die with sinners. And yeah, we are sinners, man. We're filthy sinners. But guess what? What matters is that we're repenting and we're hoping in the Lord's mercy. And the repentance is in Yahweh Shai. And it's only for the nation of Israel. That's for you wacky-tacky Christians. Okay, that can't seem to understand that salvation is only for the Israelites. That want to include the whole world, which is incorrect. And that's a topic for another time. But this truth ain't easy. It was never meant to be easy. Set thy heart aright and constantly endure, and make no haste in the time of trouble. So the goal is to constantly endure, and the heart's going into the mind, say it right, man. Think upon righteous things, meditate on the kingdom, meditate on salvation, meditate on righteousness, and being in the presence of Yahweh Shai, and understand that this is nothing compared to what you're going to be rewarded with, man. All the little hell that you're going through, man, and you remain and you endure, that's nothing compared to what the Lord is going to give you, man. The Lord's going to spoil his elect, in the good sense, Yahweh Shai is going to greatly reward his elect, primarily his men, and then the rest of the elect family, man, so enjoy, man, take it, man, and I say that for myself too, because we all go through hell. Every single brother and sister in this truth that are sincerely in Yahweh Shai is going to go through hell. There's no way you're going to come into this and just have it, like a piece of cake, just have it rosy and nice. That ain't going to happen. The Lord is going to put you through shit, man. Yahweh Shai is going to put you to the shit. It's like it put you to the test. He's going to put you through shit. But he's also going to give you a way out of that shit, and keep you, humble and grounded, because all the afflictions also humble you too, and it humbles me too as well, and I'll give you a personal testimony. Yahweh Shai, gave me a horrible disease, IBD, which stands for inflammatory bowel disease. The Lord gave me that disease, and he gave me it in this truth, and that shows you that, the Lord will put hell on you. I'm just showing you an example of my personal testimony, and, brothers have their testimony, and also even a few sisters too, you clearly know that you're going through hell, once you Yahweh Shai, take away the things that that you took for granted, and we know the Lord ain't gonna point on you what you can't bear, but the Lord will put you to the ringer, but he will give you a way out. He will give you ease. You just gotta remain. You gotta endure. You gotta remain faithful to him. Remember, the same way the Lord can put hell on you, he can take that hell off of you. He can take you out of hell, which is a bad condition on earth, and put you in a better place, instantaneously. We serve the living power. Remember that. Remember that your hell that you're catching is for a moment. Is really nothing in the eyes of Yahweh Shai, compared to everlasting joy and everlasting salvation, man. Especially when we see those new bodies from Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, we're part of the Lord's elect. Because every Israelite is going to be in those new bodies, but only the elect is going to get it first and get higher perks, So remember, man, the hell that we go through, is really nothing compared to the reward. Just be faithful to Yahweh Shai and endure and stomach what the Lord has put on you, and in due time the healing is going to come, your condition is going to be changed to a better state, just trust in the Lord and endure, and I even say that for myself, this is verse 3. Cleave unto him, cleave unto Yahweh Shai, seek the Lord while he may be found. You want to be near the Lord, and that's another reason why the Lord, put you through hell, to humble you, and that you become broken, and you get closer to Yahweh Shemashai, because the Lord don't like the proud. He don't like prideful people. Yahweh Shemashai resisted the proud, man, and he showed grace to the humble. Our power, Yahweh Shemashai does not like prideful people. The Lord only loves the humble, man. And particularly Israelites only. Because Israel is the only nation the Most High has love for. And really the meek is going into the elect, because that's who's really gonna have true love for Yahweh Shemashai. Even though Yahweh Shemashai is gonna put hell on them. But guess what? You heard it's mentioned in the book of James, I think. You heard the ending of Job. Even though the Lord put him through hell, but the Lord was very merciful and gracious to him in the end. And he got everything back, even double. He got even more. So the reward is going to be great, man. Remember that, man. You really can't lose, in serving Yahweh Shemashai. Losing would be turning your back to Yahweh Shemashai. Giving up on the Lord because the Lord put you through a little test. A lot of people are going to do that, especially when the MOTB comes, because your comforts are going to be stripped away, and it's going to be made known if you're down for the Lord or you're not. Okay, cleave unto Him and depart not away. So don't draw back against Yahweh Shemashai. Even though the Lord will put hell on you, remember, man, that's part of the serving Yahweh Shemashai. And especially to the men of the Lord who go through it the most. Because demons are after us. Okay, remember, man. And Job, Satan wanted Job to go off so bad. But guess what? Job, kept his integrity. And ultimately won. And that's what the men of the Lord are going to do in these last days too. The elect men of Yahweh Shemashai. But everyone's going to be tested. The scriptures mention many are called, a few are chosen. Many Israelites have been woken up into this truth. But only a few are chosen, man. And the few that were chosen, are going to stomach all the things that the Lord's going to put on them and not depart from it. While the many are going to ultimately depart from the Lord, because they couldn't handle it. Even though it was a light affliction, they couldn't handle it. And ultimately the Lord didn't want them, so they drew back. And the Lord don't take pleasure in those that turn their back against Him. They're not fit for the kingdom. So they're ultimately going to be destroyed. It was better for them to stay in the truth and catch the little hell, and be victorious in Yahweh Shai, than to just die horribly, man. And become a loser. You don't want that. I don't want that. Lord willing that we remain, and the Lord, we're grateful that the Lord, is chastising us, because that means He's dealing with us. And remember, that the chastising, the hell that the Lord puts on you is not because the Lord is, hates you or something. No, it's because the Lord is, is building you up, as well as, humbling you and keeping Him near to you, and keeping you near to Him, I should say, Salakia. So it's really not like people in the world be like, oh, why is the Lord doing this to me? Does the Lord hate me? Nah, take that stupid mindset out of your brain. Really the Lord is, correcting you, which is true love, and it might not feel great to the flesh, but guess what? You need it, and the flesh needs to be disciplined, and to hell with this flesh anyway, because at the end of the day, part of the reward is getting changed from this decrepit flesh, so that's what you want to enjoy to the end, man, because there's a glorious reward, man, that thou mayest be increased at thy last end. Whatsoever is brought upon thee, take cheerfully. So the scriptures tell us, the hell that you catch, you should take it cheerfully, man. The Lord chastises you, you should be grateful, man. That means the Lord is dealing with you. That means, Yahweh Shemashai is working with you. You're in a better place than the vast majority of Jacob, who the Lord is not even dealing with. The vast majority of our people are considered the bastards to Yahweh Shemashai right now. Because if a father doesn't discipline a child, they're not really a child to the father. 2/3 are not, the Israel of the Most High, even though they're Israelites, but they're not walking in the Spirit. you know. So the Most High doesn't see them as, as his children right now, even though they are his children. But right now, they're disobedient children. But the elect are obedient children, striving for righteousness, and he's chastising them to make them better as well. Remember that. This how the temptation that the Lord puts on you is to mold you to a better person, which is really to be more like Yahweh Shai to the best you can. Being conformed to the image of Yahweh Shai. Because Yahweh Shai is that better person. He is that golden standard. So we're all being molded, Lord willing, that we will enjoy, into the image of Yahweh Shai, man. We're walking as he walked to the best we can, and the Heavenly Father, wants to see that, man. He wants to see you try, be ye perfect as your Father in heaven is perfect. You got to try, because we're not going to be perfect in these bodies. But guess what? We have grace in Yahweh Shai, and that's really the Most High's grace given unto us through Yahweh Shai's sacrifice, which pleased the Most High, so that we have this, grace that we're not under the penalty of the law, and a lot of our people are using that grace to be even more demons, man, when this grace is really meant for you to get right with the Lord and strive for righteousness until we, enter into that new covenant, which is in Yahweh Shai, but it's really for the elect on this side to truly, believe in Yahweh Shai and his son Yahweh Shai, and all may be delivered and enter into the new covenant at the return of Yahweh Shai. So everything the Lord puts on you, be happy, man. To a person in the world, they might find you crazy, if you say that. If you say, oh, you're happy that the Lord, put you through hell, a carnal person will be bugged out when you say that. But a spiritual person will understand, yep, that because the Lord is dealing with me, that means the Lord wants better for me. That means the Lord is humbling me and breaking me down and bringing me closer to him, making me strive for righteousness and putting the fear of the Lord in me, because temptation that the Lord puts on you, the hell that he puts on you, also, brings the fear of the Lord on you, because that, the Lord is watching your every move, because the Lord is literally afflicting you. He's putting you through hell, it ain't no accident. Everything is strategical with Yahweh Shai, so once you realize, yep, the Lord is targeting me, and that keeps you in check, that means that, you would have more fear of the Lord, which is beautiful, and that's a good thing, because the Lord, might have mercy on you, man. If he wants you to enjoy on your of his elect ultimately, the Lord's gonna have mercy on you. He's molding you to a bad person and only fit for salvation, fit for to receive his mercy, okay? So take cheerfully what you're going through, man. Don't despise it, man. Be happy, man. And remember that what you're going through, every brother is going through too, their own type of hell, as well as sisters too, just keep, remaining, man. Enjoy the remnant, the remainder, the elect. They're gonna do that. Lord willing, that if it be the Lord's will, that be our destiny, But you gotta fight the good fight of faith, man. Okay, and be patient when thou art chained to a lower state. So we have gotta be patient. The scriptures mention the patience and faith of the saints, and we are in a low state right now, especially when we're in this truth. You're gonna catch more hell than a wicked 2/3. But guess what? Lord willing, that you enjoy, your road is a road to salvation, man. While the 2/3 and the wicked of our people, their road is the road to damnation and destruction on this side, especially through horrible means, the famine, World War III, especially the nuclear missiles and the chariots, cannibalism, all these things, the sword, teeth of wild beasts, Leviathan coming out, and apparitions, all the horror that the Most High has cooking up, the 2/3 are going to go on that road, man, that road to destruction. They're going to taste of all of that, while the elect are going to be protected from all of that, and ultimately, be victorious in Yahweh Shai. Why? Because they remain faithful to Yahweh Shai, even though the Lord put them through hell, and they're going to be greatly rewarded, and they're going to be the higher, aristocrats of the nation of Israel, man. The creme de la creme of the nation of Israel, and the elites of Israel, which is the elect. That's why you want to fight, man. Because the legacy is tied to all of this. For gold is tried in the fire. So, the men of the Lord, especially, that the scriptures mention, the Lord said he's going to make his men more precious than fine gold. So the men of the Lord are going to be in a higher status, man. After, the refining process is done, and the men of Yahweh Messiah come out as gold, and as well as the rest of the elect, because the women of the elect are going to be attached to those brothers too, and the children. The Lord deals with order, So the elect, the whole elect family, when the hour of temptation comes, when all hell breaks loose, are going to be looked after by Yahweh Messiah. And Almighty the Lord is going to, give, spiritual power and divine protection to his men. And the women and children are going to come under those men that the Lord has a lot for salvation, which makes them part of the Lord's elect family, So all that miraculous things are going to be happening, after, we went through that fire. Lord willing, we be the part of the Lord's elect, an acceptable men in the furnace of adversity. Yeah, because ultimately, the Lord's going to put us to the test. Yeah, we were out there preaching the word, and we believe in Yahweh Messiah, we're striving for righteousness. We still got to be put to the test. We still got to go through the hour of temptation. We still got, because it's easy to talk. How much more, laying down your life for the Lord. Because some of us are going to have to do that. Some of us are going to have to get our heads chopped off. Remember that. So it says here, believe in him, believe in Yahweh Messiah, and he will help thee. So the Lord is an ever-present help in the time of trouble, man. Don't forget that. There's nothing really impossible to Yahweh Messiah. The Lord is always present, man. Wherever hell you're going through, he put you in that hell. And he's the only one that can get you out of that. That's what you got to remember, man. Lean towards him, man. That's why he's breaking you down and bringing you closer to him. So you can lean on him. And he's gonna help you, man. He gives you daily bread. He gives you a roof over your head. He gave you the access to repent and watch these videos and get built up. The Lord has been so good to us, man. Just enjoy for Yahweh Messiah, man. Order thy way up, and I say that for myself as well. Order thy way aright and trust in him. So it's all about trusting in Yahweh Messiah, man. So serving Yahweh Messiah, ultimately means you're gonna expect, afflictions. The elect ain't trying to run away from that fire, man. The mindset of the elect is to ultimately go through this process and please Yahweh Messiah. Just as Yahweh Messiah pleased the Most High. And the elect are going to be in the same mindset. Salvation isn't for quitters, man. It's for finishers, man. This is a marathon. You got to finish that race, man. No matter how tired you are, you got to keep going, man. Until you reach that finish line, if it be the Lord's will, which is ultimately the kingdom when Yahweh Shai returns at the end of the day. And especially for us brothers that are teaching this word, we're likened unto spiritual soldiers. Soldiers, don't flee the battlefield. They stand firm and in order, man. So we're commanded by Yahweh Messiah to do the work and stand firm, man. Even though you catch hell, even though you have woe is me, sometimes that woe is me, mindset could come upon you because you're going through a lot of shit and you just want a W, and there's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, remember that we were called to endure, and remember that a soldier, a spiritual soldier, because we're not, carnal soldiers, we're spiritual soldiers, But a soldier for Yahweh Shai, is going a soldier ultimately, takes orders, man, from his master, and the master is Yahweh Shai, the Lord Yahweh Shai even said, in those that, let me see if I can get it. Don't want to butcher it. This is Luke 9:62. And Yahweh Shai said unto them, no man having put his hand to the plow and looking back is fit for the kingdom of heaven. So once you put your hand to the plow, speaking about us men of the Lord, and we say that humbly, Lord willing that we enjoy, when you put your hand to the plow, meaning you get to work, in the ministry, and you're looking back, meaning, going back to the world, you ain't fit for the kingdom of the Al-Bash Mashai. You're really a coward, man, in the soldier sense, because we're spiritual soldiers. Someone that, quits, they're really cowards, man. You know, you gotta stay firm until the end of your course. And some of us are literally gonna be put to death. We haven't been through shit yet, man. And these afflictions that the Lord put us through, that's ready to help build us, to make us better and stronger mentally, and also, to lean upon Him, and better in standard wise, because we're striving for righteousness and we're being conformed to the image of Yahweh Shai, and we're trying our best to walk uprightly. There's a lot of benefits, why the Lord, when the Lord puts you through hell, there's a lot of benefits that come out of it, which is making you that, that vessel that the Lord sees fit for His mercy, man, to give salvation to, because the Lord ain't just handing out salvation to anything, man, okay, to just any Jake that, because yeah, all Israel is going to be saved at the end of the day, but guess what? On this side, the elect are going to work hard, to receive that great salvation, especially from the impending doom, unlike the rest of our people, we're going to catch death by pain. You want to fight, to be worthy to escape all these things and stand before the Son of Man. Remember that, man. The kingdom ain't for comfort seekers, man. The path to the crown is through tribulation, man. Because the reward is going to be great, man. So suffering a little bit for the Lord ain't, that shouldn't really discourage you, man. So you got to enjoy the chastisement, and that proves sonship, man. That proves that the Lord is dealing with you. People that have this, that escape mentality, those that draw back, those that look back, they reject correction, man. They're not endurance minded, and through endurance you actually grow, man. Be a better person, being conformed to the image of Yahweh Shai, man. So that, to summarize this lesson, we're not sent here to live comfortable lives in this wicked place. Really this place is our punishment. This final captivity of our nation is really a punishment. We're under the curses, and we're not put here to, live comfortably, man. Or find shortcuts in Babylon. We were sent here to bear afflictions. We were ultimately called, Lord willing that we be chosen, but we were sent here to bear affliction, man. Fulfill our law, whether you be a man of Yahweh Shai, whether it be a believer, and a man of the Lord, of course, is a believer. But I mean, the brothers and sisters that listen and believe, that are not, especially brothers that are not called to be prophets, because not every, elect man is going to be a prophet. You have some elect men that are helpers, but a lot of the elect men are going to be teaching and are going to be, prophesying, particularly the 144,000. Some of them are in the spirit world, but a lot of them are here on the earth too. We just don't know who's who. We just hope that we make it at the end of the day. It don't matter, if you're off the 144,000. You being off the 144,000, of course, it matters. Is the highest rank for an Israelite man. That's like the government. That's the highest status. But guess what? At the end of the day, it's all about making it, man. And ultimately the Lord decides who's part of what, ranking. At the end of the day, it's for us to bear all of this, and Lord willing that we make it, if it be the Lord's will, that we even bear all of this and endure to the end. And endure till Yahweh Shai redeems us. Those who try to escape spiritually or physically, by running to this world and giving up, folding in Jacob's trouble and only taking the MOTB, which is a microchip, you're gonna perish. They're gonna perish. Endurance is the seal of the elect. That's the mentality that the elect are gonna be in, man. They're gonna endure for the Lord, even unto death. Some brothers are gonna be, even sisters too, are gonna be put to death in these last days for the Lord. Remember, man, they're going to be greatly rewarded. You know, the whole elect family is going to be greatly rewarded. You know, we just hope that we're part of the elect family, and the elect family are going to enjoy in Yahweh Shai, man. You know, so yeah, man. You know, at the end of the day, you know, this is part of the battle. You know, the conditions of the battle, man. Endure or be overcome. Lord willing that we endure. I want to give all praises to Yahweh, Bashim Shai, Bashim Kodash, double honest to my apostles, elders, great millstone. So I want to my brothers and sisters, listen up, man.